On today's episode, we have a car here. Customer won't be named, you know. This car's pretty low, so we're gonna see how the suspension is set up and reacts to things. And f you, Malcolm. All right, scratch that. Yeah, we got a low car here today, so we're gonna see how everything works. I don't know how to describe this. Let's just take a look. Okay, as you can see, the car's low. It's actually slightly raised. It's slightly raised from when he came in, because when he came in, it was fender to rim, and we literally couldn't mount this we couldn't mount the alignment sensor on the wheel without that piece hitting the quarter panel, because you got to move it back and forth. So we raised it up just enough to do that. He'll probably not even he's probably going to complain and say it's too high, but at least we have a good reason why. Let's go underneath. So this customer bought Cusco suspension arms. These arms are super old. They're actually brand new here, but I'm saying the design is very old. So it's just an ancient setup. Like, as you can see, there goes my light. As you can see here, it's got the old style complete circle rear upper control arm. These were the original design for S13s because the factory one is like this. But what most manufacturers do now is they just make it half. So you don't run the risk of having your coilover contact any of the suspension arm. So, which it looks like this one's not going to contact, I hope. But depending on how you adjust the coilover and everything, you could have contact there, which would suck. So yeah, that's one of the first problems. Second problem we're running into right now, I can't even get my finger through here. So this is the frame, this is the rear upper control arm. So when this compresses, it's going to hit the frame. When it hits the frame, the suspension is going to stop moving. So it's not going to travel anymore. So if let's say you're drifting and that arm contacts the frame, the suspension's just straight up not even working anymore. So that's a problem. And the arm can break, yeah.
Or bend.
Yeah, the arm will bend for sure. And yeah, it could break. I mean, there's welds right there. There's a weld here, there's a weld here, and you're putting all the stress on this. So the knuckle's getting pressed up with the wheel, and it's going to put all the pressure right on these two welds as this part is contacting the frame. Not good. Not good. I know you all want to be gangster and have a low car, but I mean, you can, but it's not really going to work. So, so what's the solution to that problem without raising your car? So I was a little hesitant to make this video because I don't actually want all you guys to raise your cars up. I want the cars to be relatively low, but this car is a good example of just too low, and certain products that he bought are not low car friendly, such as these Cusco arms. They're just not designed to be on a low car. You want to get an arm, an upper control arm, and a toe arm that's angled towards the end, which we do sell. We sell GK Tech, ISR. I think ISR does that, right? So yeah, check those brands out on our website. SPL is probably like that, and those arms are now on our website too, thanks to Malcolm. So those will give you more clearance.
Even SPC.
Yeah, even SPC arms do that. It's literally like just this arm because it was never redesigned. Now, we put subframe risers in this car. So what subframe risers do is exactly what it says. They raise the subframe. So what does that mean? That means you're shifting this whole subframe assembly. I don't know if you can get a good photo of this thing, but you're shifting this whole subframe assembly. You're going to shift it up 15 millimeters higher. Now what does that do for you? Well, it'll straighten out these arms. If you, let's say your car's slammed and you get subframe risers. Now the subframe's coming up with the suspension staying relatively the same because it's not being adjusted. So now these arms are being straightened. So the roll center is being corrected. All good things. But you're moving all the pickup points higher up. So this pickup point, the rear upper control arm, is moving 15 millimeters higher. So that's another reason this is close. So it's like we could have kept stock stock subframe mounts in the car to help with that clearance just by 15 millimeters. It wouldn't have helped. It still would have contacted. But then we would have the arms pointing to the sky, and the roll center would be even worse than it is now. So you can't even like pick your battles. It's you just have to get arms that are more modern and angled the correct way. Like if you had a tall car, you could use these arms. It's not gonna affect anything. But right now, it's creating a problem. So if you didn't have a subframe riser, you can see the subframe riser right here. It's basically you're taking the slack, the space out of above here, and you're putting it below. So you're pushing the whole subframe up. But if you didn't have this, the subframe would pretty much be where this is right now. So this would be closer. Well, actually, it doesn't even matter. This would be the same space either way. So what I'm trying to say is, don't some of the toe arms contact too? It's weird because this one actually seems like it's got some space.
So if he didn't have subframe risers, it would use the factory the cup that goes under the subframe bushing, and it would hit more. That's why I didn't put him back.
Oh. Okay, that's why this makes more sense. So this is another contact point for a slammed car, is your rear toe arm hitting your subframe mount. That's a big area. Like mine are destroyed, and my arms are bent from contacting that. Well, my old arms are bent from contacting that. And then what happens when your arm bends? So this obviously you can't see because it's not contacting on this car. This is actually pretty good space. I take that back. Oh, this is the stock. Well, this is a spacer on it too, right?
Yeah, but it still goes in the same spot.
Well, this is usually what it looks like. So it's pretty tall. So basically what you'll see, a good way to know if your car is doing this is this whole cup is going to be dented in and destroyed because the arm is slamming into it. Now, I just realized something. This arm might still contact the stud, but it's very close to clearing it, so he might be okay. But what happens when when your arms contact your subframe is they bend. And then what happens is you go to get an alignment and you have to adjust the arm, and now it's bent. So it's not twisting perfectly evenly. It's just bent out of shape, which is okay, I guess, but not really. I mean, it's just bad overall. And not to mention you're weakening the arm, it can snap. When that arm snaps, your toe's gonna be completely out of whack. And if that happens while you're drifting, you're probably gonna crash into a wall. So, like I said, the customer will not be named. We'll not be naming this customer.
And being slow, can only run 5 degrees camber.
Yeah, so he's got 5 degrees of negative camber in the rear. So what does that mean? That means you're probably gonna be burning up this piece of tire.
1 inch of tire.
Yeah, like it's probably gonna be burning this piece of the tire. So this is your contact patch. So you got a 2-inch contact patch, which is gonna be pretty bad. There's gonna be like no grip on this car. So, I mean, basically this video is just problems that happen when you slam a car. An S chassis. Oh my God. Okay, this is a perfect car for this video. So you want your front lower control arms to be relatively parallel with the ground, and you want the tie rods to be parallel with the arms, realistically. So if you have stock knuckles on a slammed car with no bump steer correction, this is what it's gonna look like. So I don't know if you can see, but subframe, control arm. That is a huge, huge gap. So this car is gonna have ridiculously insane bump steer. Like it's, because this arm is so straight. If this arm was lower and more in line with the steering rack, it's not gonna have as much give in the steering wheel. Like it's gonna be pretty pretty strong with, taking impacts from the ground. It's not gonna move the steering wheel. But with it like this, you're just adding leverage. So now when this wheel hits a bump, it doesn't have as much, it has, I guess, what, more give in the...
No,
it's hard to explain.
The outer tie rod is at its max tilt
Yeah, that too.
because it's so slanted. So when it hit the ground, it has nowhere to go. So when it hits a bump, it's just gonna go wherever it is, where the tension is.
Yeah, you could see.
So that's bump steer.
The outer tie rod is like completely maxed in that direction too. So, ball joint as well. So, yeah, this, I mean, obviously he needs, like, if he's gonna drift the car, which I'm pretty sure he's going to, he's gonna need to come back. We're gonna have to do a bunch of stuff. He's gonna need a drop knuckle at least, because that'll drop everything. What a drop knuckle actually does is it moves the pickup point of the ball joint and the outer tie rod. So it'll lower this control arm, and it'll lower this pickup point. Then we're gonna have to cut the bump stop off. Like, he's got a bunch of stuff that is gonna have to be modified for drifting. That's pretty much everything that happens in the front, I wanna say. Well, other than the obvious, like you will contact inner fender liners, stuff like that. You'll contact the back of the wheel well. Like when you're full lock, it'll contact that. It could lock up because it'll stop the wheel from moving. So there's things like that that'll happen when you're this low. I'm sure he'll run into all of that. That'll be fun. You know, you gotta put skid plates on your oil pan. This sway bar is gonna be destroyed in like 3 years. Because this sway bar is gonna be a shield from hitting the oil pan. This thing's gonna contact everything first. These two, this is a Nismo power brace, I believe. These things are gonna get destroyed. I actually cut mine. I didn't have a power brace, I had regular tension arm brackets, but I cut mine like up to that bolt hole just to shorten it, the height, so it wouldn't scrape on everything. There is something else, right? Well, we're gonna take a look at the toe curve anyway, just to see what it does. I mean, it's got -5 degrees of camber in the rear, so I'm just interested. I just want to see what happens when a car is this slammed and we put some load on it to see what the toe curve does. But Chris said he did extend the traction arms 5 millimeters, which is what did we do that for Wags's Black? Yeah, we did it for Wags's Black S13 Coupe. I don't think we had that on the video yet, but that car is relatively low, nowhere near this height, and it just wasn't a setup like Josh DeLise's car, so we wanted to try it out. Did we do it? We didn't test it, right? No, we just did a lower amount. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we extended these 5 millimeters more than stock. We're gonna put the straps on right now, and we're gonna see what it does under compression. Maybe we'll be able to see these arms contact the frame too under compression. Yeah. So, my car was, just for the record, if this customer does watch this video, even though we are not naming the customer, you know, we're not trying to put his name out there. But if he does watch this video, just for the record, my car was this low or lower at one point. So I'm not trying to knock him. I'm trying to educate everyone as to what happens when your car is this low. I mean, look at Anthony's car. Look at the height from the rim to the quarter panel. That car would be considered pretty low. This car that we're looking at right now is an inch lower than that. So you can get the idea. Like that height, I actually kind of like. I think you're still gonna run into problems though. I mean, if the car is lower than stock height, you're gonna run into issues. It's just a matter of what components can you buy to help alleviate the problems you get with lowering the car. Drop knuckles in the rear, that'll help correct roll center in the rear. But you know, there's only so much you can do. You can't fix everything. Yep, you know, I've never been into bondage, but starting to get into it a little. All right, so it's 5.4 degrees of camber, and the toe is 0.1. It's stock toe. The toe is stock right now. So let's see what happens when we put some load on the suspension. Well, we have some interesting stuff happening right now.
You're back to be next already.
Okay, well, Malcolm sees it now. It actually towed in.
Oh wow, 5 millimeters, huh?
Yeah, it towed in. And the camber obviously changed. 0.5 degrees of camber. So this is actually going to camber in a lot more than this. We barely put stress on this right now because the you can show the camera, I guess, but the sensors are going to hit the wheel well, so we can't do it all the way.
That's actually pretty nice.
It's actually pretty nice. This alignment that we did with extending the traction rods is actually, considering the height situation, is pretty awesome. It keeps towing in.
Well, you know what else I think is happening? I think because of the amount of camber we're running in the rear, it's not going to tow out.
Yeah, that must be the problem.
Yeah.
So it's almost, you almost have like a slight benefit from running camber, but the problem is the benefit of the car towing in is not going to outweigh the contact patch you have on the tire. You have no contact patch. And the more you compress the suspension, the more camber you get, and the less contact patch you have. So running this much camber is just, it's a horrible idea for drifting. That's all I can say. For driving around and the car looking good, it's, yeah, cool, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, show car, it's cool.
Yeah.
If this had a cage and you were A group and you had this much camber, your vehicle speed is way too slow. And everybody's gonna complain that like, yo, you're going way too slow. You have no rear grip.
It would be a miracle if you made it to A group with a car like this.
It would be a miracle.
Yeah.
Well, there's other tracks around that you don't need a cage to tandem.
Yeah.
So if you are tandeming and you have 6 degrees of rear camber and you have 2-inch contact patch, you're going so slow.
I would have to, if someone was drifting with this car and they were like, yo, let's tandem, I would have to see this dude do a whole like 10 laps and not spin out before I go out with him, because this is like spin out central, this setup.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah. Bare minimum, we got to get this camber out of here. The toe curve is actually good right now. I think that is because of the added camber a little bit, but that's not proven. We're just guessing. Obviously, Chris did extend the traction rods with the Cusco adjustable traction rods he's got, so that is helping the toe curve. But we're seeing something completely different than we see with tall cars that we've been working on, where the toe curve does reduce when we compress the rear. The toe does toe out. It just doesn't toe out as much as it would if those arms were stock, the traction rods. In this situation, the car is actually towing in when we compress it. So it's actually, the toe curve is actually better than the other cars. But the camber situation on this car is so bad that the toe curve doesn't outweigh the camber situation. So it doesn't even matter. But yeah, we haven't proven why that's happening yet. Chris is saying it's probably, the toe curve is probably doing that because of the negative camber, the amount of negative camber. But I don't know, I'd have to sit down and think about this for a minute to see why this is happening. Come here, man, I'll explain how this shit works. You gotta get, sometimes you gotta get down to this level to really understand. Give me the camera, I'll show the people.
So here's the rear subframe. You can see how the control arm is angled. It's not parallel like with the alignment rack right now, right here on the right. So this is actually rotating. Instead of rotating like this, it's rotating like that. So it's the natural toe curve is going to be towing out when it's compressed.
Anyway, that concludes our bondage episode. Our compression episode with low cars. I'm just making names up as I go. I don't know. Malcolm will make a title for this and he'll figure all that out. Anything else? Dude, I keep looking at the front control arms.
It's literally like 30 degrees pointed up.
Yeah, that control arm is insane. I want to drive this car and see how
Like,
crazy.
do we have a digital leveler? I would love to find out what degree it is.
You know we don't got tools like that.
Shit.
We just have straps.
Yeah. Wow, look at that. Perfect.
Stock alignment. Wow, yeah, it is weird. It's perfect.
What the fuck?
Coilovers are good. They're
Well,
consistent.
He has good coilovers. These have
Yeah.
helper springs on them.
Yeah, the coilovers are really nice. Are they GP Sports? What were they?
GP Sports.
So, coilovers are really good. They got the helper springs. What else they got? I saw some other shit on there.
It's got Swiss springs on them too.
Oh yeah, Swiss springs. Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully, the customer will one day raise his car a little bit and listen to us. And I want it to be the height of my car when it was on the ground back in 1987. But it was actually a pretty good height. I feel like for someone who.
So
likes-
you were also one of those 50 millimeters wider quarters.
The rear quarters, yeah.
So you were able to run less camber. He would have to run a shallower,
Well, first of all, he's got to pull these quarter panels.
pull the quarter panels, or run a shallower wheel so that he can.
Yeah, what's the offset? Like,
This is probably plus 22 or plus 23.
yeah, so you can always fix that with the offset, but also, it's got to be pulled like crazy. If we're talking low car fitment and
You can run a-
all that,
An even smaller tire, that would help.
I don't think it's gonna help that much. Because you need that wheel to clear the quarter panel, not the tire.
That's true.
So, yeah. Are you good? But yeah, it's 1718 too, so it's kind of a pain in the ass when you're setting this up. But he's gonna run Type X Aero. Type X Aero is the best for 1718 because you can lower the front and raise the rear, and the side skirt will still look kind of normal. It's not like a body kit where it's flat. Like my car, my car's 1718, and the body kit's flat. So I tried to set the height so that the body kit is parallel with the ground, but then you have a huge gap in the front, and the rear is like almost touching the rim. So, yeah, but with Type X, you can kind of run that reverse rake style.
Reverse rake.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I don't know. I like low cars, but if you really want to if you want to compete, you got to throw that whole low car thing out of your mind completely. But if you want to find a middle ground, yeah, we're working on it. That's why we're making these videos. We're trying to find a nice middle ground. Hopefully one day we get a car in here that is, or if my car ever runs again, you can see a nice middle ground between low, but still pretty functional.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we'll just recommend parts based on that. But yeah, here's some things not to do and some cool information about rear toe curb on a low car. I didn't think that was gonna happen. So that was pretty interesting. All right, bye.